So I can't see my project window sometimes. So I have to click this little arrow here and go to project, and then I'll get my composition button. I'm going to click my composition button. I can make the background color any color I want. Usually I leave it black and then I'll use a shape layer or a solid over it. So 1920 by 1080, 29.97, click OK. And then I'm going to fill this with a solid. So I'm going to go over to layer, new solid, or I can double click and fill it with a solid using the shape tool, and it's going to fill with whatever color I used last. So I can make that any color I want, right? So now I've got a shape layer on the screen there, and that's my background. Let's zoom out a little bit, 50%, and I'm going to make, let's make some mountains this time. We'll make some ground. So I'm going to I'm going to make a new layer. This is not selected. I'm going to take the fill and I'll make it kind of brown. That's my ground. And then I'm going to make another layer, and I'm going to grab my pen tool. I'm going to change the color, make it a little bit different color, make it a darker color. And I'm going to make I'm going to grab the pen tool and make some mountains. And then I'm going to drag that underneath this other shape. So something like that. There we go. And then we actually, and then one of the exercises we'll do some drawing. So you can do some drawing in After Effects, but it's not nearly as sophisticated as Illustrator. Illustrator's strong suit is doing stuff like this. So you can create elements in Illustrator and then import them into After Effects. So we did some clouds the other day, and we can name all these shape layers. So this shape layer here, I click into it, hit enter, call the sky. And then I'm going to toggle this on and off, and I'm going to click into that shape layer, hit enter, call this mountains. And then I've got another shape layer here. That's my ground. I'm going to click into that, hit enter, call this ground. Okay, and then I'm going to collapse all those. I'm going to grab my pen tool. I'm going to fill it with white, and I'm going to make some clouds. And last time I used a circle tool. This time I used a pen tool. I'm going to click and drag around. There's one cloud. And then I'm going to draw another cloud. Don't laugh at my clouds.
Shades of Dudley Do Right.
Yeah. There we go. So there's my clouds. Okay. So I could put the clouds behind the mountains. I think it might make more sense. So let's call this cloud 1. Click on it, hit enter. Cloud 1. Click on it, hit enter. Cloud 2. I'm going to select both those layers and drag them behind the mountains. There we go. So I've got a nice little scene here. Okay. So now we're not going to animate. Let's animate the clouds this time, but let's lock everything for now. So I'm just going to lock all my elements. Maybe you can color code it too. Like maybe I want the clouds to be a different color. Oops, I got to unlock them. I'll make the clouds red. All right, so I know when I look here, I know exactly which layer is what, right? Okay. So now we're going to make our bouncing ball. We're going to grab you have to click and hold it down. Anytime you see a tool and there's a little triangle in the lower right-hand corner of the tool, that means that there are other tools hidden underneath. And to get to that tool, you just have to click and hold down the mouse button. So I'm going to grab my ellipse. And I'm gonna make a little ball here. About that big. Okay. And I want to get that pan behind anchor point tool. Sometimes it's hard to get it to come up. So I'm going to click away from everything, select the shape, then grab my pan behind anchor point tool. And sometimes that pan behind anchor point tool will be in just some weird spots. And before you start animating, you want to try to make sure to remember to grab that pan behind anchor point tool and place it where you want it to place it. If you want to orient it around the corner, do it on the corner. Most of the time I put it right in the middle. And what I've noticed is graphic artists and designers and animators usually orient from the center, but I know that a lot of times when people are doing programming, they like to use like a clipping type of an element where they're taking the elements and they're placing them from the lower left corner. So a lot of times when you're doing programming, the orientation point will be this lower left-hand corner, like right here. So I'm going to grab that and drag that up. And then when I get it in there, I'm going to hold down the control key and get that right in the center. Okay. So I'm going to zoom out. We'll zoom out to say 50%. And I'm going to start with the ball off the screen. So I'm going to grab the move tool and move it off the screen. And the idea with this exercise is to just play with the stretch and the motion tween and play with the keyframe. So, and then the idea is that every single time it hits the ground, it's going to take less time for it to bounce back up. And it's only going to bounce up about half as high as it did the first time. So I'm going to start it where it is. I'm going to go down to transform and I'm going to set the position where it currently is. Then I'm going to go over to 1 second. And I'm going to drag the ball down with my move tool. And you'll see that I get this little rubber band thing. And then I'm going to just drag it down. And then I can hold down the shift key to make sure it's constrained perfectly. And there's my first hit. It's going to go boom. Then I'll go over from there about 20 frames. I'm going to bounce it back up. So I can use the position, or I can use my mouse and just click and drag. I'm going to drag it about halfway. Then I'm going to go over a few more keyframes, each time incrementally, just a few less. Drag it back down, holding the shift key. Then I'll go over a few more frames and drag it back up, holding down the shift key. Then just a handful more frames there, drag it back down, hold down the shift key. And then let's do one more. Let's do a little bitty bump up a little bit, and then it's going to settle. Okay, there we go. So let's check it. Let's see how that looks. Let's set it to 20%. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, good. Now, once again, to make it look more realistic, more convincing, I'm going to select all those keyframes. I'm going to turn on my motion blur. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to keyframe assistant and choose easy ease. Let's try it now. All right, so that's starting to get there. Now what we got to do is we got to play with that speed graph. So I'm going to grab my speed graph editor. And so remember that when it's in the air, when it bounces, I want there to be hang time. When it smashes, I want it to smash. So the first one is going to come down. It's going to click. And let's do it like this. Let's see if that works. No, it's going the other way. Let's push it in. And then when it comes up, we want it to hang in the air. There we go. And then when it hits, I want to pinch it in so it punches. Let's go over. Then when it's in the air, I want it to hang a little bit. Then the last one here, same thing. Want to pinch it in. And same thing here. Okay, let's try it. So that's starting to look more convincing, isn't it? Now let's turn this off and let's take that first keyframe and let's make it hit the ground faster. So I'm going to change the position between the first and the second keyframe. There we go. So then what was the other thing that we need to do? We need to make the ball squash and stretch, right? We need to make it where when it hits the ground, it squashes. And then when it comes back up, it gets back to its regular shape. So I'm going to go to this keyframe here, and we're going to look at scale. So I want to set it like 1 frame before, or 2 frames before, actually 1 frame before it hits the ground. And I want to click the scale button so that it's at its regular scale. Then I'm going to go to where it actually hits the ground. I'm going to unlink the width from the height, and I want to squash it. Then when it comes off the ground by a frame, I want to set it back to its regular shape. And then I want to do that on the next one too. Actually, I can just select those keyframes, Control C, come over and paste, Control V. Let's move them over a little bit. I want that to be there. So it's gonna go bang, bang. See, and the sound effects are really important. Don't forget to make your sound effects. Okay. You gotta go. You gotta put the sound effects on. Yeah, yeah. However, your ball, whatever sound your ball makes when it bounces.
What was that? A sliding something or other? They used to sell plastic sliding clarinet sorts of
Oh,
things.
that, those little plastic. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna paste them in here too. Oh wait, did it lose it? Let me select them again. Control C, and then Control V, paste. And then I want that frame there. Okay, so now I've got this. Right? So then if you're finished with your work, you're gonna export it. So I'm gonna take the timeline and just grab this bar here. This is what you're sending is whatever within the width of this bar. So if there's a whole bunch of extra frames you don't need, just take it, drag it in. Leave a frame or 2 at the end. Then I hit the space bar to test it. Okay, very good. So now let's look at exportation. So remember, you have to save your project. Your project is your After Effects project, but you're gonna render it and export either a .mov or AVI or MP4 file. You're gonna send me a document. You're gonna upload it to your YouTube channel, and then just embed the link, right? And so that way, YouTube is doing all the heavy lifting for the file size, right? And you can make a file roughly any size you want, right? So that's I think that. Plus, the other thing is that you'll have a YouTube channel, and anytime you want to show your work to someone, you can say, hey, you can go to this YouTube channel and you can see some samples that I've done. So you're already building your portfolio. Aha. All right, so now I'm going to go to composition and I'm going to go to add to render queue. And I can click here for where it says lossless, and I can choose either AVI or QuickTime. I'm going to use AVI. And then don't worry about the video output. We'll get to that later. Then I can choose the name. So I click there and I choose the name, and I'll call this bouncing ball. Underscore 01, because I might have to do another. Click save. So I've got my render set up. Then I just click the render button. And there it is. So now, if I go to my folder, here's my bouncing ball. Oh, there's the other one. It started playing the other one as soon as we finished that one. Let's play it again. Okay. Any questions?